When we hear the word Sphinx, our minds immediately go to the statue crouching on the Giza plateau. But this iconic scene doesn't tell the whole story. The ancient Egyptians didn't know the Sphinx as a single statue, but as an idea that appeared in different places, in various forms, across successive eras. Statues with the body of a lion and a head of a king carried a message far beyond mere size or mystery. So the question isn't, where is the Sphinx? It's why did Egypt need more than one? And what did each statue represent in its own time and place? In this video, we revisit the common image and explore the Sphinx statues beyond Giza, one by one, to understand how the idea of the Sphinx evolved and what these statues reveal about power and symbolism in ancient Egypt. Interestingly, most of us, when we think of the Sphinx, don't see a symbol. We see just one image, a massive statue in one place at one time, as if this form were a unique exception in Egyptian history, rather than part of a broader tradition. This impression wasn't created by ancient Egyptians. It was shaped by the modern image. Tourist photos, textbooks, and films have all presented the Sphinx as a standalone eye, rather than an extension of an idea repeated through the ages. Through repetition, this perception has settled in our minds without us even noticing. But in the mind of ancient Egyptians, the Sphinx wasn't a special statue. It was a symbolic language, a visual form carrying a specific meaning, one that could be repeated, modified, and repurposed, depending on the context, location, and the king behind it. Here lies the fundamental difference between our modern view and their ancient perspective. We see a massive stone linked to awe. This is a symbol tied to function, a symbol used for guardian, proclaiming authority, or affirming the sacredness of a place. From this understanding, the concept of a symbolic tradition emerged. The Sphinx was not a single case. It was an idea used repeatedly, evolving over time, appearing in a multiple forms, which now lead us to trace these statues one by one. But before we move on to reviewing the statues, we need to take one step back to the idea that came before the fall. The Sphinx didn't suddenly appear as a massive statue carved from rock. It was a result of a long symbolic evolution in Egyptian thought. From the very beginning, the lion was associated with a clear meaning, a power capable of enforcing order and providing protection at the same time, not just as a predator, but as a symbol of control and stability. As the concept of a kingship in Egypt took shape, the king came to be seen as a grantor of this order. So, combining a lion's body with a human head was not merely an artistic choice. It was a precise visual exception of the ruler's rule, authority to govern, strength to protect. Early artifacts don't give us a giant sphinxes, but symbolic hints of the same idea. Small lions at entrance or beneath thrones served a clear function without exaggeration in size or form. As the state evolved and the king's cardinals grew, this symbol matured, eventually taking its most recognizable form, the Sphinx. A head representing intellect and authority, a body embodying strength and guardianship, and a single unchanging message. Here stands the protector. Now that we understand the core idea behind the Sphinx, the question remains: how did this idea take shape into the real world? How did the symbol transform into tangible statues, each carrying its own message and a specific rule. In the next few minutes, we'll move through the most important Sphinx statues in Egypt, one by one. We'll see how the symbolic form evolved and track the changes over time to understand how the Egyptians used this visual tradition to convey authority, protection, and sacredness in every era and location. This isn't just a random overview. The statue will be presented in a chronological and meaningful order, allowing us to see the bigger picture behind each version of the Sphinx. If the Sphinx was such an important royal symbol, why don't we see it clearly in the earliest periods of Egyptian civilization? Interestingly, early Egyptian iconic imagery didn't start with the Sphinx, but with the lion alone. In the pre-dynastic and early dynastic periods, the lion was used as a direct symbol of royal power, without the composite form we recognize later. Reliefs from these periods show lions as a sufficient expression of sovereignty, protection, and dominance. This symbol didn't disappear. The lion continued to represent the core of pharaonic authority throughout the ages. But at a later stage, the way this idea was expressed began to change. Most studies indicate the composite form of the Sphinx, a human head with a lion's body, didn't appear until relatively late, likely during the 4th dynasty. There are some early examples, but they remain debated. This includes a small limestone statue attributed to King Jedefra, the son of Khufu, and a quartz that had preserved in the Louvre, believed to have been a part of the Sphinx statue based on the royal name's headdress. However, these examples are inclusive. They are either incomplete or suffer from dating issues, making them possible hints of the idea rather than definitive evidence of its full development. What this stage reveals is not a sudden appearance of the Sphinx, but a slow evolution of the symbol. And here we reach an important point. Giza was not the beginning. It was the moment when this symbol reached its visual peak. Here on the Giza Plateau, we encounter the first complete example of the royal Sphinx concept. The statue was carved directly from the natural limestone bedrock of the plateau itself, a step unprecedented in both scale and ambition. Although the facial features have eroded over time, most researchers agree that the head represents King Khafra, based on the statue's location and its direct relationship to the mortuary temple and pyramid complex. This statue was not isolated. It was a part of an integrated architectural and ideological system, in which the pyramids, temples, and visual symbols together conveyed a single message about authority and eternity. In this statue, the function is clear. The lion's body expresses strength and guardianship. The human head symbolizes legitimacy and ruling intellect. Thus, the Sphinx becomes a symbolic guardian of the Giza complex and a visual link between royal authority and the ideas of the sun and rebirth, central elements in all the kingdom ideology. What makes the Giza Sphinx truly remarkable isn't just its size, though it is the largest statue carved from a single block, but the fact that it is the first mature, fully integrated model of the Sphinx concept. After this, the symbol was no longer an experiment or a possibility. It became a tradition, reused and developed across the ages. The Sphinx of the Middle Kingdom. Why does the Sphinx of the Middle Kingdom look different and harsher? With the onset of the Middle Kingdom, especially during the 12th dynasty, the Sphinx was no longer just a stable hereditary symbol. It became a visual political tool. In the statues of King Amenhotep III, we see a clear transformation. The body is a full lion, no longer topped with the traditional royal headdress. Instead, it features a lion's mane and ears, while the human element is limited to the facial feature. This style, long misunderstood and mistakenly labeled Hyksos, is in fact entirely Egyptian, reflecting the spirit of a turbulent era rather than a fleeting artistic taste. In Amenemhat III's time, Egypt was not perfectly stable. The power of provisional rulers eternally, along with constant threats of the Asian and Nubian frontiers, demanded a new model of kingship. Not a distant god, but a strict, present rulers who enforces order with the strength of a lion. This is clearly visible in the Sphinx here. It features a heavy presence and a dominant lion-like traits reduce the divine aspect in favor of a political authority. Perhaps the later reuse of these statues with the names of other kings inscribed over them reveals how the Sphinx transformed from purely ideological symbol into a tool of power that could be passed between regimes without losing its impact. How can a single statue live through more than one era and more than one king? In the city of Tanis in the northern delta, one of the most important Sphinx statues outside Giza was discovered. The statue, now preserved in the Louvre Museum, embodies the classic Sphinx model, a lion's body with a human head, carved from a single block of pink granite. Although much smaller than the Giza Sphinx, its refined craftsmanship and solid material reveal it as a work of royal authority, not merely a decorative piece. Historical evidence suggests that the statue originally dated back to the late Old Kingdom, likely created for one of its kings, before being reused over multiple eras. Inscriptions were later added with the names of new kingdom rulers, such as Ramses II and Mrembetah, and it appeared again in the late period. The true function of the Sphinx outside Giza becomes clear. The statue was no longer tied to a single mortuary complex. It became a ready-made symbol of authority, transferable, and reusable whenever a new regime needed to invoke the prestige of the past. Tanis did not create the symbol, but it inherited and used it with full political awareness. Thus, the Sphinx at Tanis demonstrates that the power of the Sphinx lies not only in its original location, but in its ability to transcend time, remaining a last visual presentation of the ruler protector, no matter whose name or era it belongs to. How did the Sphinx transform from a mortuary guardian or portable royal symbol into a fixed statue at the heart of the capital? Within the beginning of the new kingdom, the Sphinx model did not disappear. It continued as an official representation of royal authority. One of the most notable examples of this continuity is the alabaster Sphinx at Memphis, which remains in its original location to this day. carved from white calcite. The statue is the largest known sphinx after the Giza Sphinx, and stylistically dates to the early 18th dynasty, although no inscription precisely identifies the king. The statue was found near the temple of Ptah, the god of creation and craftsmanship. In this specific setting, the silent mass takes on its true meaning. The Sphinx was not placed here for decoration, but as an architectural symbolic element within a living city, not inside a closed mortuary complex. The Memphis Sphinx represents a new stage in the evolution of the symbol. The statue was no longer tied to a tomb, pyramid, or later political reuse. It became part of the urban landscape itself. Its presence beside the temple of Ptah links royal authority with the idea of creation and order, presenting the king not only as a ruler, but as a guardian of cosmic balance within the city. Here, the Sphinx does not watch over the desert, but over the city, the people, and the function state. With the symbol established at the heart of cities, the Sphinx didn't stop evolving. It would later appear in even more diverse form, increasingly connected to ritual and religion. Why did diverse forms of Sphinxes appear along the avenue of Sphinxes, and what was the ritual message? The avenue of Sphinxes in Luxor, stretching 2.7 miles from Karnak Temple to Luxor Temple, lined with statues in various forms: the traditional human head Sphinx, the ram-headed Sphinx representing a moon, and 4 ram statues. This hybrid creature first appeared in the New Kingdom to decorate ceremonial roads leading to temples. These statues were not mere decoration. They guarded a sacred path and linked religion with architecture, asserting the pharaoh's power and divine status. Their reputation along the avenue distinguished protection from glorification, showing how art became part of the ritual itself, not just a static representation. Why did Hatshepsut adopt the Sphinx form, and how was the traditional male template adapted to assert her legitimacy? Hatshepsut's statues at Deir el-Bahari combine the classic lion's body with the queen's feature, often including the pharaoh's false beard, presenting her as a ruler with full authority. The lion is the pathway leading to the temple, serving as a guardian and for royal processions. Some statues were carved from ancient limestone, emphasizing her desire to appear powerful. Even after some were destroyed by Thutmose III, archaeologists have reconstructed thousands of fragments. Choosing the Sphinx form symbolized strength and wisdom, balancing femininity with authority, and demonstrates how ancient Egyptian art was used to reinforce royal legitimacy. These statues show how the traditional symbol could be adapted to represent an exceptional political situation, affirming Hatshepsut's ability to assert her rule visibly and powerfully. The Sphinx is not a single fixed statue. It's a symbolic language used by ancient Egyptians to express power, authority, and spirituality. Each statue reflects its own era, its own king, and the idea of its time. Whether in the Old Kingdom, the New Kingdom, or even in the later periods. Perhaps the question isn't how many sphinxes are there, but why did Egypt need so many? The answer reveals the depths of ancient Egyptian thought and how art could become a tool to communicate with the gods and to redefine authority across time. And now, after the journey across thousands of years of Sphinx symbolism, which statue do you think was the most influential? And don't forget, in the next video, we will dive deeper into the astronomical secrets of these statues, the rituals that accompany them, and why some faces were defaced. Stay tuned. Each Sphinx carries a story that has yet to be fully told.